Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Hard Truth. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are completely awesome. Thank you to everyone who is viewing the content for supporting the channel this week. We have two live scheduled. There's merch available. And of course, you can always donate through Cash App or PayPal. Listen, I've reached a verdict here on this case. I've been on the fence about Brian Kohberger as a suspect. And since the alibi was published, I've come to a verdict, and I'm going to share it with you and allow you to prove me wrong, right or wrong. All right, how about that? So grab that coffee, a nice cup of tea, green tea, as we begin our story. All right, I've had my misgivings about this case from the time Brian Kohberger was arrested until now. I haven't shared a verdict of whether he's guilty or innocent. I've been on the fence because I haven't been able to get with the prosecution's case, but I've also had a lot of questions about the defense and a lot of things about Kohberger. And so I reached a verdict. Okay, I'm going to share my verdict here, and I'm going to give my points. And I just ask you to hear me out before you attack my position. Okay, this is how I feel with 95% confidence whether Brian Kohberger is guilty or innocent. All right, let's get started. I don't believe Brian Kohberger uh, is responsible for the deaths of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, or Ethan. I don't believe he's ever been inside 1122 King Road. All right, this is my verdict. And I'm going to give you three big reasons why I have reached this conclusion based on the evidence that has been released or leaked or however we got it. That's that's the conclusion I've reached. Okay? That means that whether or not he was in Moscow and has knowledge of the crimes is still up for debate. Okay? And what he was doing during the crimes is still up for debate. But as far as the actual act of homicide itself, I don't believe that he's done it. And I also believe that the chief was planning early on to frame someone else. And I believe when the bottle was spun, the lot fell on Brian for some reason. And here we are. But I don't believe that he is the killer. All right? My rationale for not believing that Brian Kohberger committed any of the Idaho 4 murders is this. There's no evidence of the crime scene in his vehicle. All right? Because his alibi places him in his vehicle, and the police are placing his vehicle at the crime scene, entering and leaving the crime scene, I feel there should be some evidence from the crime scene in his vehicle. There should be some residue, perhaps Murphy's hair, definitely blood, even if it's just microscopic stain, maybe under the dash or whatever, something. DNA from somebody out of four people, that lost their lives. None of their DNA is in his vehicle. According to the PCA, Kaylee was just playing with Murphy, according to Dylan's statement. And so Brian would have to have some of Murphy's hair on him. That dog was in every part of that house. Everybody loved Murphy. They petted him. He was in everybody's lap. And so if Katie was just playing with Murphy, she had to have his hair, his saliva, something on her hands, on her person. And so for Brian to come right after that and tussle with Kaylee and then get back in his car and for there not to be any of Murphy's hair in Brian Kohberger's car or on any of his clothes in the apartment is just not fathomable. It's not fathomable. I don't believe it. And I just don't believe that Brian Kohberger was in that house. Since Brian is saying that he was out and about in his car, that means that the white car sightings, or at least a couple of them on King Road in that area, have to be his car. Okay, because he's saying he was in his own car. So if he was in Moscow, near the crime scene, he was in his own car. So some of these white car sightings in Moscow have to match his car. And from what I've seen, none of them match his car. The first video I ever made about this case was about the car sightings not matching his car. And so since he's saying that he drove his own car around in the wee hours of the morning, we have to expect that if he was in Moscow on King Road, he was in his own car. So at least one of these sightings that the police have should be his car, not a stock photo, not somebody speeding past a gas station with tinted windows. We should have his car on one of those surveillance cameras. And to my knowledge, to this day, we do not. Okay, do you remember this video? And now that they've released that they have searched his car and his parents' home, they did not find blood in his car. It is the police who are insisting that Brian arrived at the scene and left the scene in his own car. That's their narrative, okay? According to Dylan's statement, he was dressed in all black and his hair was exposed, okay? So we have to believe that he killed 4 people with a knife, got right back in his own car, okay, with blood on his clothes and his hair, and he didn't decide he may need to clean it until a month and a half later at his parents' house in Pennsylvania. There's no such thing as cleaning all the blood out of a car like that. The police can unassemble the entire car to find blood, and all they need is a speck of hair or a blood spot or whatever. The reason they haven't said they found blood in his car is because they know those car sightings are not Brian's car.